Hello, everybody. What is going on? It is Tuesday, January 14th. Welcome to this week's episode of The Walkthrough. I'm your host, Joe Macheca, as usual. How did Gamecock women's basketball outlast number 5 Texas? What will the newest Gamecock Brandon Cisse bring to the defensive backfield for Gamecock football? All of that full basketball rundown after the intro. Buckle up. This is this week's episode of The Walkthrough. Thanks for tuning in. And here's the intro.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for this week's episode of The Walkthrough, presented by the Chief Sports Network. And now, here's your host, Joe Macheca.
Yes, indeedy. Welcome to it. It's this week's episode of The Walkthrough. As I mentioned, I'm your host, Joe Macheca. Again, into the swing of things after break. Queen of the Cocks checking in. Holiday season was great. Same to you. Good friend EXO checking in as well. Good evening to you as well. Did want to South Carolina women's basketball defeats number 5 Texas on Sunday. Big win for Dawn Staley and her squad. Obviously, it was a big top 5 matchup. Colonial Life, typical stuff of what we've seen from Dawn Staley's squad so far this season, right? You wondered what they were going to be able to do without Ashlyn Watkins in such a big game like that. But, it was this offense that stepped up really early. They were shooting 76% going into half, which is absurd. I've made a pretty big deal on this show about just everything they've been able to shoot. And a lot of their shooting percentages this season over on the big spread. They've been shooting like 50% these last, 8 or so games. Ever since they've lost to UCLA, they've been on a heater and taking a lot better shots too. And I've got a quote from Dawn. I asked her post-game about just everything that, good shots and how good shots can win games that where you don't necessarily play the best. South Carolina is certainly the better team on Sunday, again, beating Texas, big win at Colonial Life. Plies was in attendance, for Plies. So super big to have, everybody or, celebrities courtside and somebody as big as Plies courtside as that one was, or as he was for that one. So super big. So how about the ladies? Yeah, huge. And yeah, definitely say hi. Don't hesitate to say hi if you see me sitting over there. But yes, no, I appreciate everyone. So it was big win for Dawn Staley, right? And this squad is so deep. As I get back, this squad is really, and there's a quote from Vic Schaefer, Texas head coach. I've got some clips from both head coaches after the game on Sunday, but I'll get to those in a sec. But and not to give it all away here, but this team is really good. They are really deep, and scoring the basketball especially. There are 10 Gamecocks that average 5 or more points per game. There are 7 more that average more than 7, right? And then you have 3 more averaging more than 10 a game, which is ridiculous. To have the scoring that spread out, it shows you what kind of caliber of player is playing, at this school right now, playing women's basketball for Dawn Staley right now at this point. So it's huge. It really is huge to be able to have a deep bench like you do. And so, it was a big win. Pow and Kits tied all leading scorers with a lot, right? Again, that's a big theme. As I mentioned, there are 3 Gamecocks that average double figures, and there are 7 Gamecocks who average more than 7 or 7. So, this team will share the basketball, and they like each other too. Dawn mentioned that as well in her post game pressure. It's like, this team, going, bring it to a lot of her other national championship teams or teams where she's found success. they like each other. They're willing to play for each other. They don't want to make each other look bad, right? So I think the buy-in is at an all-time high for this squad. And again, playing really good basketball. They're going to need it. Obviously, they go on the road to Tuscaloosa, which, I wouldn't be too concerned with the Lady Tide over there because, as far as we've seen from Alabama, they're not the most formidable opponent in the world. I don't know ranked exactly in this latest poll. Got to double check up on that. But, ran into a buzzsaw with Texas. They got 42 or 40 pieced by Texas just before Texas came to South Carolina to play Carolina. So, I think it's a really big win. But what stood out to me in this one was, they got out to an early lead and then they kind of just took their foot off the gas. They did what they needed to do to get the win and make sure, that the lead was what it was. But, when you're shooting 76% going into halftime, you got to win that game. You have to win that game. You would need kind of a big collapse. And luckily, this squad was able to just, again, use the depth. Nobody really got cooking in that second half. Full Wiley had some points, in that second half, got going, but nobody really, stood out, had that big breakaway second half. And it just showed that this team can win games when, they're not all playing like that, right? When you don't necessarily, have to have somebody, go off to win. It shows how deep you are. And again, it's huge. So Chloe Kitts scored 6 of her 11 in the fourth quarter, which was big. Joyce Edwards had a third consecutive game in double figures. I've been really impressed with how Joyce has come along recently. She's gotten a lot more mature on the offensive end, I think, because she's limited a lot of the turnovers. She's kind of into, starting to find her groove with what her game is, right? Starting to find her role with the offense, right? And what she's good at, right? As well in college basketball. So Joyce is coming along. I think it's huge. And Dawn had a quote last week about Joyce. I asked her, just what she was seeing from Joyce. And it was after 10 a.m. It was Thursday. Dawn told me she's like, Joyce, especially AM was the first game without Ashlyn Watkins, right? So Joyce elevated her without Dawn necessarily having to say anything, right? It's just one of those things. I think you can see it from Kitts. You can see it from pretty much everybody else in the room. Sanaya Fagan as well. Sanaya Fagan had a big outing. Not necessarily on the point total, but just in general, making flashy plays against Texas. Big day for Fagan. So I think that was ginormous. So again, they've really turned things around since this UCLA loss. All right. So Vic Schaefer, Texas coach, spent a lot of time in the SEC, right? There's a thing or two about women's basketball in the SEC. I've got a couple of clips from his post-game presser. I want to hear from him real quick. And then I want to talk about that, dive deeper into that, and then we'll hear from Dawn as well before we get to football.
Got beat at UCLA, and that's a really good basketball team over there. So we'll learn from it. We had talked about as I told Dawn, I had no idea they got beat at UCLA, and that's a really good basketball team over there. So we'll learn from it. We had talked about trying not to get popped first, and we got hit first and second and third. And so again, I thought they were who they were. I've been here enough. I've played against them enough. Their teams are always really, really tough. Their competitive spirit oozes in the arena, and they just play with a real toughness to them. Like everybody has a job to do. Like that team, their leading scorers come off the bench. Their leading scorers don't average 20. They average 11. 14, two of them average 14 in conference. So it isn't about who's the leading scorer. So that's a team over there. They play really well together.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why I like that last clip so much was he's like, that's a team. Their leading scorer comes off the bench. The leading scorer comes off the bench. He was like almost shocked, like almost like, hey, it's not fair, right? When their leading scorer is coming off the bench, to try to give a little play to Schaefer's Southern accent there, but yeah, it really is kind of unfair when your leading scorer is coming off the bench, right? You have so much depth, like it's crazy. And pulling it up here, I mean, I'll I believe Joyce Edwards averaging like 11. She's over 11 now finally. And so this team is deep. This team is deep, man, deep. But yeah, no. So as I mentioned, Schaefer, yeah, it's just not fair how like that's all that clip the vibe kind of said to me was like, he's just like, man, the leading scorer is coming off the bench. I don't know how you expect me to keep up with all of this, right? And preaching to his team as well, yes, for sure. And it's one of those things where it just Dawn's teams have always been deep as all HE double hockey sticks, right? Like they've all been so deep. And I think, losing Ashlyn Watkins, everyone was like, here comes Texas into town, all these words, and maybe without Ashlyn Watkins, they might get beat again. And I mean, it's the same old for Dawn Staley and her squad. Really, really impressive win against Texas, and really able to put it all together. But as I mentioned, so South Carolina again, you've got 10 Gamecocks averaging 5 or more points per game. You've got 7 that average more than 7. And then you have 3 Gamecocks averaging more than 10 a game in Full Wiley, Joyce Edwards, Tahina Papa. Pretty impeccable stuff, right? Ashlyn's was all averaging 7.2 points per game. She's obviously going to fall out of that. She's out for the year. But, I mean, the rock was getting spread around. It really is. And EXO makes a good point here. We were blessed with Coach Staley. She's a special coach. She helps the kids shine and grow. She doesn't collect talent. She makes them better. Exactly. She improves. It's kind of what I'm seeing. I mean, not to draw away from any of this, but kind of what I'm seeing with the defensive end room for Gamecock football. Sterling Lucas out here collecting stones. He was with Kyle Kennard, trying to force Kyle Kennard to get better, right? Telling a player who, like Kyle Kennard at Georgia Tech, right? Like, it's like, hey, you just had a very, very productive season at Georgia Tech. Come be better here, right? It's insane. The development that Coach Staley is able to, or has shown, in general, with this squad has been great. I mean, you've seen Maddie McDaniel come along. Maddie McDaniel, when she first saw action, I thought she looked like a rigid player. I mean, she was a little rigid, right? Kind of was really focused on her duty. Now, when you see Maddie McDaniel go out there, and we didn't see her Saturday, or we didn't see Maddie McDaniel Sunday. She's still dealing with concussion, didn't necessarily quite find a spot in the rotation. But by the time Maddie, like from Maddie's first minute to where she is now, it's one of those things where you got to give a hat tip to the development that Dawn and this coaching staff has been able to do. Because they had Maddie McDaniel, a true freshman, ready to play on the number 1 team in the country against some of the best opponents in the country. So, yeah, couldn't agree more. And so TBH, it was scary hearing Watkins was out for the season, but seems Fagan's time to shine. Yeah. And Fagan, again, the big block and then the stank face was unbelievable. I think, and it's one of those things where, again, I talked about it with Joyce Edwards elevating her game when Dawn didn't, necessarily ask her to. Same goes for Sanaya Faye, right? It's if she can elevate her game without Dawn necessarily asking her to, I think it's everybody gets better with that. Whenever one player elevates their game, everybody rises up with it. I think it's huge. Sanaya Fagan stepping in. And also, I mean, after Texas A&M, there was a lot of talking about. I got asked about it on the radio by Tyler Head. But just, Dawn said that this team plays more free without Ashlyn Watkins. And what she means by that is, without Ashlyn in there, you don't have to worry about replacing the Ashlyn Watkins role. It just lets because this, again, there have been points about this roster. There have been a lot of points about this roster and how it's constructed and everything, and but how deep it is. But Dawn has the roles down to a pat. Like everyone plays their own specific role, and that's it. Like so with Ashton Watkins going out, you don't necessarily need anyone to step up into Watkins' role. You just need all of the personalities that you have on this team to play a bigger version of themselves. Step up a little bit, right? Do a little bit more, and that's just what the circumstances call for. Calls for a better from Joyce, and on the offensive glass too. They got out rebounded or almost got out rebounded in the game. They allowed 22 offensive rebounds to Texas, which Dawn said she's got some sleep over. And I'll get to Dawn here in a second. But final note on Vic Schaefer in Texas. That Texas team is really good if you think about it, right? That Texas team has played some good basketball. They just 40-piece the team that you're about to go play tomorrow in Tuscaloosa. Better show up ready for that one too. But again, knowing what South Carolina did to Texas, I think it's just one of those things where, again, Dawn's rolling. Vic Schaefer and his team are going to, they're going to go on. They're going to be a tournament team. They might make the Sweet 16, Elite 8, depending on how they played South Carolina pretty well, considering the dynamic of their squad. It's largely built up of forwards and everything. But from a South Carolina standpoint, from what I saw from that win was just grit and toughness. So let's hear from the head coach, South Carolina's head coach, Dawn Staley, about that win over Texas.
It's all about taking good shots. I think you can have a night as far as having as many turnovers as we had with taking good shots. You lose games taking bad shots. And for us, we're finally getting to that point where we're taking better shots and we're taking rhythm shots. And it's paying off for us, especially in a game like this. I like the fact that we haven't reached our potential. Like, we're still getting better. We're still getting used to it. And then we have an injury like Ashley, and we're still formulating who we are. And this league will tell us. This league will tell us who we are. It will define who we are. And then, what? We in the successes that we have, the years we've been very successful. We've been a great rebounding team, right? That's one. Two, we've been a efficient field goal shooting team, and we're not there. As far as the numbers, you can look at the NCAA numbers and it's you're 12, and you need to be around one or two, top 5 in those categories, because there are really good teams out there that's going to challenge those two areas, and we're getting better. We're taking better shots. Rebounding thing, we have 20 offensive rebounds. Fortunately for us, that toughness and that will to play through it really helped us. But giving up 20 offensive rebounds will kill you probably any other night besides today.
Yeah. Plain and simple from coach, right? They didn't necessarily do the flashy things, right? But they won the game pretty big. And she talked everything, and obviously the shots. I'll get to the shots in a second. The schedule in this league will prepare them enough. And what she means by that is going on the road, number 19, Alabama. They didn't fall. On the road in Tuscaloosa, number 19, Alabama, and then hosting number 13, Oklahoma on Sunday. Guess what comes after that one? You've got number 5 LSU in here. Another top 5 ranked matchup. Okay. A lot of fun. That one should be, and that's on the 23rd, Thursday the 23rd. But this schedule, so you essentially won 6 ranked games in a row. Essentially 5 if you factor in A&M, but that was flawed. You won that game 90-49. I don't know how much of a ranked game that was, but again, to beat Texas by 17, number 5 ranked Texas, one of the best teams in the country, who had also only lost one game, and that being to Notre Dame in overtime. Also, Notre Dame, another favorite for the Natty. But Notre Dame, another solid good team. Texas, another solid good team. And you were able to beat them by 17 at home. It says a lot about how this squad goes. But yeah, so hate the Tigers. Not looking forward to LSU and their coach. Yeah, it's going to be quite a heated matchup. I don't know. I think there's always a lot of storylines surrounding Kim Mulkey and Dawn Staley, right? And so I think when you get this game at Colonial Life Arena, this fan base is going to be ready for it. It's going to be, obviously one of the bigger games in women's hoops of the year. So it's going to be a really, 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 really big tilt. I mean, I think South Carolina can win. They've given me no reason to think that they can't, right? Just because of how they've played this season and how they've been able to, control, the glass and the shooting percentage and points in transitions. The South Carolina team is too much for other teams right now. And so it's just one of those things where I don't want to, again, knock on wood, because I do that a bunch at this show. I think they're going to be in a good spot going forward. So I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to, put too much on it. I want to, again, remain objective. But the way that they're playing right now, you should win out, essentially, and you would expect them to. But again, you got to beat UConn, got to beat LSU. Two big games on the horizon. We will see. And, to kind of put everything women's basketball here before I hit a commercial break and get into football real quick. I am going to talk to Brad Muller next week to preview LSU. So that should be a whole lot of fun. Get your full LSU preview here next week. So it should be a really good time. Again, more on the women's team next week with Brad Muller. Be sure to tune into that. But I hit a quick commercial. We're going to talk about Gamecocks' new quarterback, Brandon Cisse. This is the walkthrough. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Disaster comes uninformed. During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. It can become extremely difficult to bounce back to what you knew before. Having your home or office destroyed or damaged by water, fire, smoke, or mold affects your personal and business lifestyle. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170. Resto Pros of the Midlands. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case.
Nice.
So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth. And, we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
The show, making the show possible. Resto Pros, Barndominium, and Protect with Bear. Again, please love and appreciate all of our sponsors here. They're the best, making this show possible, giving this kid a show, and making it happen. And I want to talk about Gamecock's new cornerback, Brandon Cisse. The new latest commit from NC State. This kid is 6 foot, 182 pounds, coming from Sumter. This one's big. This one is big, I think, because, again, you get another – I mean, you're losing Nikki Minwari, right? You're nickel, right? You've seen Jelon Kilgore, step up into that spot a little bit, play a little bit there, here, there. And I'm going to do a big – when women's basketball kind of slows down and then finally gets some games that aren't, ranked games, I'm going to, do a full depth chart run through for Gamecock football And, this kid is certainly going to make a case for starting, that is for sure. I mean, I can see starting at nickel. Jelon Kilgore is going to make a really good case for it. Jelon Kilgore is going to make a really good case for starting anywhere in this defensive backfield, whether that be at safety, whether that be at nickel. So I think Brandon Cisse is one of those guys where he makes that room that much better. And, to go get a guy like this, go get a guy like this in the portal just means that, because this defensive backfield was losing quite a bit. You're losing Nicky Minwari, you're losing OD Fortune. All right. So you were going to have to rely on some younger guys to step up. And, Cease is one of those guys where, you needed a veteran per se in that room, right? Using quite a bit in the defensive backfield. So Cease has played a lot of football, but also will have some time left as well. Got to college class of 2020. So just one of those dudes where it's the more guys you can have in that room, the better. Like, honestly, the more just straight football players you can have in that room, the better. And Cease is no exception. Gamecocks says this will be huge for Kilgore to stay himself and let Cease step in and fill OD's shoes. Can't wait for Vicari to start too. Yeah, Vicari Swain certainly making a case for himself. He's going to be big in that defensive backfield. Don't forget about Judge Collier. Judge Collier is going to come along as well. And again, when I do this full down of the depth chart, I think, Judge is going to make a name for himself. And then also, obviously, Cease, but, the Kilgores, both the brothers, I think you could see some Gerald Kilgore on the backside of it, right? I thought he was going to be a rotational piece this year. Maybe not. Maybe this upcoming year he's more of a rotational piece. But Harold Kilgore, I mean, he's played. He was listed on the depth chart, and so and the biggest one with Brandon Cisse being the fact that they beat Ole Miss. That was one of the bigger storylines surrounding this Brandon Cisse commitment. Not only are you getting a stud defensive back beating out Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, so to be able to do that, I think it's huge. And just have when you're going after big boy players, you're gonna have to win big boy football recruiting battles, plain and simple. And so it's one of those things where, Brandon Cisse big get for this Gamecocks backfield and Torian Gray, and Clayton White as well. I will do a deep dive into the roster and where they sit for everything there. But Brandon and the latest Gamecock, to commit to South Carolina in the transfer portal, it makes it 13 players in the portal now that South Carolina has signed. So big portal class for Shane Beamer and company. I think there's still some positions that you want to see them attack, but it is all nothing worth, nothing to worry about per se as they continue to sign guys that are going to make their lives a lot easier. Brandon Cisse being one of those guys. Brandon Cisse is going to be a competitor in this backfield or competitor in this defensive back. Excuse me, talking too fast. But he's get ready to know this kid because again, I think he's come around summertime. He's going to be a name that they're talking about potentially starting in this defensive backfield. So, super excited for spring football as EXO makes it good. So again, Gamecocks women's basketball continues to roll. Got a big one on the road here on Thursday against Alabama Lady Tide. And then, you go you're back home on Sunday against Ole Miss. And then you've got LSU. So quite a bit of good basketball to be played for this Gamecock women's basketball team. Obviously, it's here. This is the hardest month of their schedule. So we're in the thick of it. Coverage is going to be a little bit more Gamecock women's basketball focused for this show at least. But again, plenty of spring football to come around as well. And then EXO, as I mentioned, January is the hardest schedule. I think the men's basketball team could come around too. But I haven't been giving them as much shine recently because, again, there's not a whole lot to talk about, to be honest, with this men's team. So, not a whole lot to offer there. But, again, this women's team heating up on a really tough part of their schedule here, and we'll see. Do they make it through unscathed? And even if they don't, I still think they should make a long quite a long run in the postseason. So I believe Matt Anderson and Alex Jones are on after me. They're taking over the airwaves at 8:00 tonight. So super fun. Go join them after this. This has been the walkthrough. Appreciate everyone tuning in. And yes, Queen of the Cocks baseball is on the horizon. Valentine's Day baseball is on the horizon. Can't believe we're starting that early. It is that close. Paul Maneri and his guys getting ready to go. We'll have to have John Whittle on this show, kind of preview baseball as well. Give a full rundown and see where Paul Maneri's got this going into the year. So exciting stuff. Going to be a lot of fun stuff with this show on the way too. A lot of adjustments, a lot of moving, a lot of shaking, a lot of fun projects, a lot of fun interviews. Well, I'm on the way with the new year. So appreciate everyone tuning in. And we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the rest of your week and follow along to all the women's basketball coverage on thebigspur.com. You can find all game updates, game threat on the Plano's PPG message boards. And then you can find the show on my Twitter or at the Big Spur Twitter or on the Chief Sports Network on YouTube. So you can find me there. If you missed any of my show tonight, you can always rewind on YouTube as well. So appreciate everyone tuning in tonight and enjoy the rest of your week.